Now, can we proceed? So, first of all, I welcome all of us to another section today, and I believe that we had a very wonderful week. There is this joy I always have concerning weekends. At least I have my time to myself and rest and all. But that was secondary school period, not now again. Both weekend and school days, there is no difference. All right, so we're looking at the eighth week. What we have today is taxonomy. Taxonomy and what? Systematics. Taxonomy and systematics. So basis, also second agenda we'll be looking at today is as well is basis and rules of taxonomy. Then also was look at binomial nomenclature. And lastly, we'll be looking at classification hierarchy and then some practical exercises. Okay. All right. So introduction to taxonomy and systematics. Um, Taxonomy is the science of classification, number one, identifying, naming, and grouping organisms based on shared characteristics. I'll read it again. Taxonomy is the science of classification, identification, naming, and grouping organisms based on what? Shared characteristics. Then systematics on its own is a broader discipline that includes taxonomy. That means it includes both classifying and naming organisms, and also it involves the evolutionary what? Relationships among organisms. Now, these two fields help us to do what? Organize biological diversities and understand evolutionary what? History. Alright, so I will explain now. First of all, I hope you have by now we have established that there are what? Numerous life on earth. That is, there are different species of animal, there are what? Diverse animal, even in the variation exists in what? Every level of life forms. Now, okay, I'm inside my school field right now, inside school, my campus, and funny enough, a fly just perched where I am reading right now, where I'm taking this class. Looking at this fly, it has wings, yes, it can fly, yes, but it's not something I think I've seen before. I'm looking more closely, I'm seeing an ant, yes, I can recognize this ant, but there are some species you will see, they are so different that you can't really recognize them easily. Are you getting my point? Now, there are so many insects that fly. So many has two wings, some have more than two wings. Some insects have leg, they can walk. Some have leg, they cannot walk. Example, dragonfly. Are you with me? Some have what? Brightly colored feathers. Butterfly. Now, all these insects, yes, they can fly. Sometimes all of these insects, yes, they can walk. But then there are what? Diversity. There are so many things that differ from them. Coming to animal, we have so many animals. Insect first of all is an animal, shey you know. But now bringing it down to mammals, we have so many mammals, those that can breastfeed their young ones, give birth to their young ones alike. They are numerous. We have many of them that have what? 4 feet. Now, if you look at it closely, we still have animals that are what? 4-footed. They walk using their what? 4 feet. Now we now have humans. We have adapted to the point that we can what? Stand on 2 feet, and then our other two limbs are free. I think at this point we should use limb and leave feet out of this. Okay. So animals that have what? 4 limbs, that including their four limbs and hind limbs. Limb means your what? I will explain this. A limb is what you call upper limb, you call them your hand. Your lower limb, you call them your what? Leg and feet. Okay. So generally they are called limbs. Now, humans have adapted to the point that what? We now have this ability to use our what? 2 limbs to walk, and then the other 2 limbs are free. We can use to perform what? Much more complex structures. So all this diversity poses a very great challenge to what? Scientists. Let's go on another trip now. Let's imagine something very wild. Imagine you are here in Nigeria, and then I myself am somewhere in the USA. Now imagine you are walking along the road and then you saw an organism. We are experimenting together. Now let's say we have phone, but let's just say okay, our phone we have not developed this videoing technology where we can make calls. Now in America and you are over here, and we want to work together on an animal, I can be trying to describe that animal to you. In your own mother tongue, you have a name you call it. In America, we have a name we call it. Are you people getting me? Now, trying to describe that animal can pose what a great challenge, because what you may be describing, I may be seeing something else there in mind. But then that means there is need for us to what, be able to group them and call it one name. So when I talk to you and I'm telling you that let us study on ants, you yourself in abroad know we are talking about ants. If I should pen it down and say, okay, let us study on black ant, that's not taxonomical name though. But you now have an idea of the type of ants you want to look at. Growing up, there's this ant we call electric ant. When I say, okay, let's study about electric ant, now you have what a clearer picture of what we are looking at. These are what common examples. So let's trace it back to this thing we are teaching now. Because of all these diversity and variations, scientists said, okay, let us make things clearer and what easier for us. Let us what initiate what a naming system. So taxonomy means what a naming what system. That's in its simplest form. I'll still give you a description you're going to write, like the one we have here already. Okay. So taxonomy, let us break it down into two words. Taxonomy comes from two words. Taxes, that is. If you have your pen, please write. Taxonomy comes from two root words. Taxes, spelled Taxxis. Taxes. Now, taxes means what? Arrangement. And then nomos, Neomos. Nomos meaning what? Law. Nomos meaning what? Law or rule. So when you hear taxonomy, it means what? A rule for what? Arrangement. Is it making sense? It means what? A law for what? Arrangement. So taxonomy deals about what are these set down rules that we can use to see this animal now and classify them according to these specific rules. Let's say let us classify these animals according to those that have limbs, according to those that can fly, according to those that crawl. Are you getting me? So this is what everything that taxonomy looks at. On the other hand, we have now a bigger mother body called systematics. Systematics is now talking about including taxonomy, and there's another discipline called phylogeny. That one looks at evolutionary trend. So when you talk about systematics now, we are looking at things from the broader end. We are looking at classifying organisms both on their shared characteristics and also on their evolutionary trend. Okay, but for this night, we'll be looking closely at taxonomy. Alright, so let's hope you understood so far. Hope you are following so far.
Yes, sir.
Okay, beautiful. Now let us look a little at the history or background of historical background of taxonomy. Now, if you ask yourself the truth, you know that even before you learned, how will I put this now so you understand this? Now, from the time you are born, you have learned to identify and name things, right? Your mom will tell you, my mom will tell me, this is what we call this in our own mother tongue. My dad will now tell me, this is what we call this in our own native tongue. Okay, so as we are growing up, we are being we are being taught different name for different things. Likewise, during the olden days, the ancient times, there were life on earth. So our earliest ancestors, they looked at things and now they try to see the similarities between things, and then they call them one particular name or they group them. Example, we have a very old man like Aristotle. Aristotle looked at organisms on earth. He now group them based on habitat. These ones are terrestrial animals. I know most of us have heard about those ones, right? You see, okay, let us group all these animals are terrestrial animals. That is animals that live on land. You see, okay, these ones that live inside water, we will now call them aquatic animals. The ones that live on air, that is they live on trees and all these things, we now call them arboreal animals. But then there are still challenges. This system is so broad that even if I say animals that walk on land, there are so many things that walk on land. So it will still be what hard for you to pinpoint something you are looking for. Then led to a man. He was my very good uncle then. I remember when I was in primary school, he used to take me out some days. But I did not know that this man was very famous. His name is what? Carl Linnaeus. Carl spelled Carl. Linnaeus is on my screen. You can copy that one down. And during the 18th century, this my uncle Carl, he said, there is something I have in mind. Let me develop a system such that we can what be able to classify every single thing on earth with just two names. Now, let me give you an illustration. If I should ask you now, what is your name? You are likely going to call your own name, right? You can say, okay, my name is Prime. My name is Prime Great. Now, His Glory. My name is His Glory. But then, if I should ask you again, what are your names? You will call your father's name, right? Then you call your first name, and then maybe you call also your what middle name. Now, human beings normally on a normal level we practice this what three naming what how will I put it now, we practice this three naming system whereby a human is given what his surname, that is his father's name, then two names for him or herself as well. You now have your first and your middle name. This will help you in such a way that even if you come into a class and then they should call Helen, there are three people answering Helen there. But once I should pen it down, let me say I now call something like let's say Joshua Helen. Probably you now will be singled out from every other Helen. Why? You have been attached a surname. So likewise, this my uncle, Uncle Carl Linnaeus, he said, let us use the same system we have been using to name human beings and apply it to species, animals. In the sense that every animal will be given two unique names such that when we call them, you know this is what we are talking about. And so he now what developed a system called binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. Bi means what? Two. Nomial there means what? Name. That means two naming what? System. Nomenclature means what? Naming system. So Linnaeus in what? 18th century. If you want to pen it down, that's around I think 1735. That was when he published this book. Systema Naturae. That was when he published his book in 1735. And then he now established the binomial what? Nomenclature. Okay. So important thing to take note here is that what? Carl Linnaeus in the 18th century developed what? A modern system of classification. His work, Systema Naturae, which was published in what? 1735. 1735 laid what the foundation for binomial what nomenclature. Okay, so we are going to look next at what the basis of what taxonomy. Basis of taxonomy. When you talk about basis, it means what we are talking about the roots, the foundation. What are the what do we look at? Do we anchor on what? Now start classifying things. So we are going to be looking at just 8 things, these 8 common things you look out for in naming things. Number one is what? Their morphology. Morphology means what? Structure, form and what? Structure. So when we see an animal, first thing we should recognize is what? How is this animal? What's the form and what's the structure? Does he have what? 4 limbs? Or does he what? How does he move? Does he fly? All these morphological structures are what we look out for. Secondly is the what? The anatomy. Anatomy means what? The internal structures of an organism. Now, thirdly, we look at their what? Physiology. Physiology talks about what? Function. Thank God we are in year one. When you enter year two, you now start seeing this department. There are 3 basic departments though. We have anatomy department, anatomy that normally comprises of gross anat, embryology and histology. Then we now have what? Physiology. Physiology talks about what? Function and what? Function and processes. Then we now have what? Biochemistry. Biochemistry talk about what? The molecular composition. That's when you start seeing in a nucleus you have DNA, you no have DNA. You have DNA localized in what? In nucleus. This one DNA is not localized in nucleus. It is what? In biochemistry that you find these things out. Also, we look at what? Evolutionary what? Relationship. That is what and what are what precursors of these predecessors of what? These animals. Under which lineage do they what? Originate from. And lastly, we also look at what? Their behavioral what? Patterns when we are classifying things. Just like human beings are classified, human beings, goats, sheep, cows, they are classified under mammals. Why? We give birth to our young ones alike. We don't lay eggs. We give birth to our young ones alike. And also mammals show this sense of what? Responsibility for their younger ones. We show care and tenderness to our what? Younger ones. Also, mammals, as you are going to see as we proceed, also what? Most of them also what? Breastfeed our what? Young ones. So let's look at, since you have established what taxonomy means, phases of taxonomy as well. Now let us look at what? Branches of taxonomy. Branches. Number one, we have numerical what? Taxonomy. Now, in normally whenever you hear numerical, what should come to your mind? Numbers, statistics. Statistics talks about what? Arrangement or organization of what? Numbers. So in numerical taxonomy, we make use of what? Statistics to what? Group organisms what? Together. Cytotaxonomy. Cyto talks about normally what? Cell. Okay. So in cytotaxonomy, we classify them based on what? Chromosome structures. Some are what? Diploid organisms. Some are what? Triploid organisms. Just like last week, we talked about polyploid organisms. We say plants are majorly what? Polyploid organisms. And then lastly, we also have what? Numerical taxonomy. Now we make use of what? Genetic data for classification. These are just insider branches of taxonomy. For today, we'll just be looking at general overview of everything. So next question is, what are the rules of taxonomy? I told us that taxonomy in itself means what? A naming system, right? I told us that taxis means arrangement, while nomos means what? Rules. So this simply means that we don't just start naming things. There are what? Rules we must follow to arrange organisms and what? Name them. Now, what are these specific rules that we what? Follow? Number one, everything we do in taxonomy must be governed by what? Three, though there are more than three, but these three are what? The key ones, okay? So everything we do in taxonomy are overseen by what? These three key bodies. ICZN. This means what? International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. So this body is responsible for what? Naming of animals alone. They oversee the what? Giving names to animals. Secondly, we have what? ICBN. International what? Codes for what? Botanical nomenclature. So they oversee the what? Naming of plants, botany. And then lastly, we have what? International code for nomenclature of what? Bacteria. First of all, I think I mentioned earlier during one of our classes that bacteria are what? They are very diverse organisms. So this body is responsible for what? Naming bacteria alone. So the second rule that must be followed is that the first rule, remember, is that everything in taxonomy must be governed by these bodies. Now, the second rule now is that what? Principle of priority. Principle of priority. First of all, there are many names choke in broken. There are so many names. Now, what we call humans in my native tongue may not be the same thing you call human in your native tongue. What we call a growing child in my native tongue may differ from what you call it in your native tongue. If you go to French, it will still not be the same thing. If you go to Spanish, it will not be the same thing. Now the problem is, which of these names are we going to take? Imagine I come forward now and tell you, okay, we are going to start calling this thing lion, whereas in Igbo it is called what? Odom. In many languages it's called what? Many other things. And now the problem is, which name are we going to take? So the second rule of taxonomy says that what? We will take only the name that what comes first. That is the first valid name is what is accepted. So even if the three of us sees an organism and we're able to group them very well and then give it a name, if I'm the first one to come up with a name, that organism will what? Go with that name. The two others will what? Not be registered. Okay? So that's the what? Order of what? Priority. Thirdly, every species must have what? A unique name. Uniqueness means what? It is pertaining to just that one alone. That is, no other organism should what? Bear that name. It should just be it and it alone. Whenever you hear Homo sapiens, what comes to your mind is what? Humans. Modern day human. There is no other organism that will have the name what? Homo what? Sapiens. Beautiful. Now, number 4. This is actually my own. This is where I need to stress very, very well. I mentioned when I was explaining number 2 that we have different what? Native languages. French. Okay, we are in Nigeria. We have Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, Ibibio, many languages, many native languages, many native tongues. Now, the law of taxonomy is telling us that you will not go and name anything in your own native language. No. Rather, we are going to make everything what? Giving them a name what? In Latin. Now, it begs the question, does Latin have every single word? No. But then, every name you have in mind, you have to what? Latinize that name. That is what? Give it what? A Latin equivalent. So, we have mentioned 4 laws now. They must be governed by these international code bodies. Principle of priority, that is the first bring up the name is what is registered. Number 3, every name must be unique. We don't need things that are close together or things that have been used before. Number 4, to avoid these language issues, we are using what? Latin. First of all, Latin is what? A dead language. Is not growing again. Latin is what? Is referred to as a dead language. So every name now in taxonomy is what? Grouped under what? Latin names. And then lastly, naming must follow binomial nomenclature format, which we are going to see next now. That simply means everything must what? Giving what? 2 names. Alright, so far, is there any question? Major taxonomical categories. Now, since this class started, I've been explaining to us that what? We're able to classify things, right? So now we're looking at the categories under which we can be what? Under which things can be classified. Now, life are grouped into 7 major categories. This thing can also be called what? Hierarchy. That's from the highest to the what? Smallest. When I talk about highest, I mean most inclusive to the what? Most exclusive. Inclusive means what? That gathers many things together. Exclusive means what? Pertaining to just a little few. Okay? So the first thing we have is what? Kingdom. First thing we have is what? Kingdom. Now, under kingdom, we are talking about we are now classifying organisms based on what? Cell types, nutritional mode, and what? Their body organization. So in kingdom, we now look at organisms and say which kind of cell do these ones have? Are they eukaryotic cell or prokaryotic cell? What kind of nutrition do they exhibit? Can they produce their own food on their own? If yes, then they are autotroph. That means they are plants. We call them what? kingdom plantae. These organisms are they heterotrophs, so they cannot produce their own food by themselves, right? And yet they have true nucleus in their cell. Okay, this group should call what? Animals. We classify them as what? Kingdom Animalia. And just like that, we also have kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, and kingdom what? Monera. These are the five major kingdoms. Now coming down, you say okay, this kingdom is too inclusive, that is it contains everything. Imagine calling everything an animal. So let's say these animals, what are features you can see in these animals that can enable us break it down further? Now say okay, let us bring a new subdivision called phylum. Phylum. So let's use animal. Let's continue with animals since we humans we are animals. Okay. So under the um under the second category hierarchy called phylum, that's phylum or division. It simply means what? Dividing the kingdoms into what? Smaller categories. So we now look at organisms and we say okay, what are the major body plans of these organisms? What are their structure? What are their body symmetry? Are they by what? Symmetrical. Human beings are by symmetrical. If I cut you into two, you will have two equivalent half. Just like you have left and right. Things that are on your left side are also on your right side. So we also ask the question. We also ask question. Presence of what? Presence of what? Do they have backbone or do they not have backbone? So after all these things, you look at some group of animals and we identify. We say, this group of animals, their body symmetry, there is this triploblastic symmetry. They have three body plans, and then we see okay, and they also have bilateral symmetry too. And we see okay, there's another thing I'm noticing about these animals that are very, very special. They also at one point in their life have what? A backbone. So we call them what? Chordates. Hope we are still together. We call them what? Chordata. So we now have what? Kingdom Animalia. Then the phylum will be what? Chordata. We say okay, let us look at this phylum Chordata very closely. Because Chordata, everything that have backbone are so much. We have cow, we have pigs, we have humans, we have fishes. We have so many things with backbone. So let us look at them. Which among these have what? What are the more specific traits? What are the more specific characteristics you can see amongst this chordata? And we now notice a group of animals too. Now this group of animals, there is something special about them. They don't lay eggs. They give birth to their young ones alive. And also what? They show this kind of maternal care to their younger ones. You say, this group are separate. Let us call them what? Mammalia. Are you seeing how I'm tracing human beings now? Okay. I want to at the very end we now get Homo sapien, that's we humans. So we have done kingdom Animalia. Second one is what? Phylum. Our phylum is what? Chordata. Now the third one is what? Class. So our class is what? Mammalia. Now bring it down. You say okay, even in this class, there is so much. We joke. So let us look at much more closer things. Now we bring out a new subdivision called order. Now under this subdivision we are looking at what? Key characteristics. How is the dentition? What are the teeth like? Do they have incisor, pointed teeth and all? They have molar and premolar. What is dentition? Is the teeth designed for what? Cutting grass, eating grass? Or is the teeth designed for what? Um Eating, that's cutting through flesh? Carnivorous, herbivorous? Or is their dentition designed for what? Both being able to feed on grass and being able to eat on what? Meat. That is omnivorous animals. So under this order, we look at all these things, we still okay. We also look at their limb structure. Under primates, are they able to what? Use their hands, or is their limb just for what? Walking alone? Okay. Now after this, we also look at their kind of reproduction, that's giving birth to young ones alive and also laying eggs and the rest. Now after all these things, we bring come to a conclusion. Okay. that these ones are called what? Primates. Are you with me? We are tracing down human beings. So kingdom number one, kingdom Animalia. Number two, the phylum is what? Chordata. Number three, the class is what? Mammalia. Now for number four, the order is what? Primate. So when we look at human beings, this species that look okay, we know the end product is human, right? But when we look at this species, we discover that they're what? They are mammals, number one. They have large brains, and then their limbs, they can be able to use their limbs to what? Grasp things. And also their eyes are in their what? Face. They have forward facing eyes. If you look at birds, birds have their eyes what? How will I put it now? If you look at birds, their eyes are not what? Facing forward. They have their eyes at the side of their what? Head, which can enable them have what? Larger field vision. So we now classify these human beings as what? Primates. So coming down, there is still problem, because when you talk about primates, it includes gorilla, chimpanzees, all these things are we are all together. We can be able to use our limbs. Gorillas, you see how they are climbing trees. There was this video clip I watched. I saw a group of chimpanzee. There was this snake that was approaching where they were dwelling. They grabbed stick, and then they are poking this snake with a stick. I was like, wow, how was this able to know that you can grab stick like this and use the stick as a weapon? It came to a point that some of the elder ones were throwing stones at that snake. Not every animal can do this. Not every can you see a goat now picking up stone to throw? No. But now you can be able to observe that a chimpanzee have this one have adapted to the point that it can what? Pick up even stones to what? Throw. So we said okay, these ones are what? Primate. They have chimpanzee, gorilla, humans, even that have gone extinct. We now said okay, let us look at a much closer thing. Do these things have tails? No. Do they exhibit social behavior? Yes. Okay. So we now call them what? Hominidae. Hominidae. So hominidae is what? Family of humans. You see includes what? Yes, the closer like ones, not monkeys and the rest. Monkeys are under primates and all, if I'm not mistaken. Now we now have what? Chimpanzee,
Sir, sir,
gorilla.
please spell the word you said.
Okay, I should spell the word. Alright. H-O hominidae. H-O-M-O-I
Okay, sir. MOI.
N-I
I'm hearing you, sir. NEI
D-A-E. D-A-E.
E EAE. Okay, thank you, sir.
Alright. So let me spell it one more time. H-O-M-O-I-N-E-I-D-A-E. Hominidae. Alright. So after that, we now look at what? Genus. Now, under genus, we are now looking at what? Groups of species that are closely related. They are very, very similar to each other. So we now what? We now look at human beings. We said, okay, this genus, this species, and they be able to use tools? We said yes. Can they be able to exhibit advanced cognitive ability beyond being able to lift up stones and throw? Yes, chimpanzee can do those things. Gorillas can even break trees. That's not what we are considering now. Can these ones be able to pick up fragments of branches, tie it together, and use that what? A well-crafted weapons? Can these ones have the initiative to look at a stick and know that if I should add a stick to something metal or something heavy, I can produce something like hammer that can be more effective, that can be more efficient to use to what? Break down things. So these group of species that can be able to think like this, we decided to call them what? Homo. Homo. Okay. So under genus, we now have what? Homo. So the last one now is what? Species. Species. So species are what? The basic unit of classification. When I taught us on cell, I told us that cell is the basic unit of life, which means after aside cell, there is no life. which means the simplest form of life you can find is what? In a cell. If you should fragment cell, that's if you should break cell apart, you no more have what? Life. So these cells are what? Cells come together to make up what? Tissue. Tissues come together to make up what? Organ. Organs come together to make up what? A system, which is what? A complex now. Systems now make up what? Complex organisms. Alright, so the cell is basic unit of life. Likewise, in nomenclature, species is the basic unit of classification. This means it is the what? Smallest point you can break things down. So under species, we now group organisms that can be able to do what? Interbreed. That means they can be able to what? Reproduce. They can be able to do what? Produce fertile offspring. They can mate. Okay. So in species, we now have what? There are different species. But the current one, we are trying to what? Name down human beings. So the current species of human beings that are still surviving is what is called what? Sapiens. 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 So Spatians, there are what? The only surviving what? Species of human beings. They are also called what? Modern humans. Okay, so let me run through these 7 major categories again. Number one is what? Kingdom. This includes every organisms with just what? Either mode of nutrition and some structures. So naming down to human beings. So in kingdom, human belongs to what? Animals. Under phylum, we belong to what? Chordata. Why? Because we have backbone. Under class, we belong to what? Mammalia. Because we are warm-blooded, we have mammary glands, and we also what? Show some degree of what? Maternal care. Under order, we have what? We are called primates. We are classified as primates. We can be able to what? Grasp things. And we have what? Large brain. And also our eyes are what? On the size of our head. Now, under what's the next one? Family. We also call what? Hominidae. Because we exhibit this social closeness, we have social bonds, social behavior. Now, under genus, we are now called what? Homo. Homo. And then other was species is the basic unit of classification. We are called what? Sapiens. Now, the next thing we are going to look at is binomial nomenclature, right? So I will now explain to you why humans are called Homo sapiens. So this is a diagram illustrating this we just looked at. So domain, I did not mention domain to us because domain is not normally classified. But when we talk about domain, you have 3 major domains. When we talk about domain, we have 3 major domains. Number one is archaea, that's the ancient organism. We have also bacteria. They don't. We have bacteria. We have what? Eukarya. But this is not something you should concern yourself with at this level. So binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. I told us that binomial nomenclature means what? A system of giving every organism just 2 distinct names. You can call it a surname and their what? First name. Just like you yourself, you have your surname and your first name. Every animal should have what? Also their what? First what? And second name. So each organism has a 2-part name. Number one is the what? Genus. And number two is the what? Species. So you can
So
see
I
the genus
can't
as
see
a
your
what?
slide though.
Probably network. Can you see it now?
I can see it now. Yes, sir.
Alright. So each organism have what? 2-part name. Number one is called the genus, and number two is called the what? Species. Now the genus is like the what? The surname. In humans, the genus is what? Homo. Now the species is what? Like their own personal name. That is what we call what? Sapiens. Now something you should notice this genus are always written in capital letter. Genus are always written in what? Capital letter. Whereas the species name is written in what? Small letters. Sorry, when I mean capital letter, I mean it must start with what? Capital letter, okay? It must start with what? Capital letter. Number two is the rules for using this binomial nomenclature. Number two, the name must be written in what? Italics. The names must be written in italics. And then if you are writing it down in your book, so you that have written these things down, that place you wrote Homo sapiens, please underline it. So we know it's binomial what? Nomenclature. If you don't underline it, I don't know, you are not obeying the rules of binomial nomenclature and you did not give us the name of any organism. Even your biology teacher, I don't know what you are doing. Okay. So number four, this system of binomial nomenclature serves one key purpose: to prevent confusion. To prevent confusion of what? Common names. So that's why we have what? Homo sapien. We have what? I'll be sure I'll give you an assignment at the end of the class. You have to go home and bring out what? 10 common things. I think during secondary school we did for rice, we did for corn. I think I still remember corn, right? Z maize, yes. We did for pawpaw, karenka papaya. I can't forget that one. We did for many other things. So please, if you go home, just bring your phone, browse it up, look up 10 what? Common things and then common living things and find their what? Binomial nomenclature. So your parents know that you are not wasting your time too. Imagine telling your there's this one for rice. I think I've forgotten that one. Imagine trying to call rice and you're telling your mom his binomial name. It will give you this, it will give your parents these things that yeah, this my child is not wasting my school fees. Alright. So lastly, it ensures clarity and universality in scientific communication. So let's look at examples of binomial names. Number one, we have what? Panthera leo. Now if you notice something, the first word there is what? Panthera. Panthera there is what? Genus, right? Panthera there is what? Genus, and it is written in what? Capital letter. Whereas the Leo is written in what? Small letter. So Panthera Leo talks about what? Whenever you hear Panthera Leo, you are talking about what? Lion. Then we have what? Canis lupus, that is wolf. Then Z maize, that is your what? Maize. Magnifera indica. Yes, I remember this.
Yeah, please, I can't
Magnifera
see your
indica.
slide.
You cannot see my slide. How about now?
I can see it now.
Alright, thank you. So we also have what? Magnifera indica, which is your what? Mango.
Yeah, please don't be angry. I think you're talking about the examples, but I'm seeing the importance of classification.
So what are you seeing now?
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. Thank you.
Alright. So mention Panthera leo, Canis lupus, Z maize, Magnifera indica, and then Felis catus, which is your domestic cat. So importance of classification. Importance of classification. This simplifies what? The study of
Yeah, please, I have not
biodiversity.
screenshotted it.
Okay, I screenshot it then.
I have. Thank
Okay, so let's continue. No problem. Importance of classification. It simplifies the study of biodiversity. It helps in identifying relationships among organisms. It also aids in communication among scientists. That was the first thing I pointed out. So now that I'm here in Nigeria, I can be able to tell someone somewhere in China, let us study what? Z maize. And the person will know I'm talking about what? Corn. Not me telling the person, let's study about corn. I don't know what they are calling corn in what? China. but you know that the name that we use is what? Latin, right? So everybody must know the what? Latin names for scientists. So whenever I mention what? Magnifera indica, someone in Australia will know that I'm talking about mango. Okay? Whenever I mention Panterolio, I don't need to start telling the person the French name for what? Lion. The person will know immediately I'm talking about what? Lion. Then it supports conservation efforts, and lastly, it facilitates research in medicine. It facilitates it because it removes that trouble of trying to identify which is which. What am I saying? What am I not saying? Like Thomas keys. Like how will I pronounce it now? Dichotomous keys. Dichotomous keys. Now what does it mean? What does this mean? It is a tool for identifying organisms based on a series of choices. Die means what? Two. So anytime you hear die, what should come to your mind? Two. So this two is what is used to what? Identify an organism based on asking simple questions. Now, each step presents two contrasting statements, and then it helps us do what? To tailor down that organism down to what? Their species level. Now, let's give an example. Imagine I am seated here right now, and then let's say I saw something coming, I saw something flying, and then it comes and it perches on my book. And I will look at that thing. First question that should come to my mind is, does it have feathers? Yes or no? Yes, it was flying, right? Okay. How many feathers does it have? Is it two or is it three? Are you getting me? Is it two pairs of feather or is it three pairs of feather? Can it work? Can it not work? So like this, you now be able to tailor down that organism. Don't worry, we are going to do a very quick practical here. I added an image for us to use as classwork. Can everybody see my screen? Because this page is crucial.
Yes, sir, we can see.
All right, so let's look at things here now. Imagine I'm seated here right now, and then I saw an organism. Look at this place. Let me mark it. Just starting here. Okay, start here. So I'm seated here right now, and then I saw an organism. First question I should ask is, does this organism have leg or not? Are you seeing it? It's a simple tool, just a simple tool of yes or no. It will now help you to be able to identify the organism. So looking at it, does this organism have legs? Yes. Okay, so since it has legs, please everybody should screenshot this. You can now we will only trace one part, we will not trace the whole of the part. So does he have leg? Yes. So how many legs does he have? It has 6 legs. Okay. It has 8 legs. Okay. It has many legs. Now, if it has 6 legs, still follow that arrow. You now conclude it is what? An insect. There are still many other things to go down if you want to start classifying each kind of insect it is. There are still many questions to ask, and then you follow it down. But then let's say, okay, the legs, I just counted it, the legs are 8. That means it is what? An arachnid. Alright, so this arachnid, does it have tail? Yes or no? Okay, what I'm looking at is an organism. It has many legs, it has 8 legs, and yes, it also has tail. That simply means it is what? A scorpion. But what if it does not have legs? Alright, so since it does not have legs, does it have what? Spinneret? Yes or no? Yes, it is a spider. No, it is a tick. As simple as that. So let's come back to the point where we asked the question, how many legs? And we said it has what? Many legs. So we now ask the question, what is the shape of the body? Does it have what? An oval shape? Yes or no? If it is yes, it is what? A crustacean. If it is no, it is what? A myra what? Pod. Now let's take no, it does not have what? An oval body. Okay, it is a myriapod. So this myriapod, does he have what? A one pair of leg each for each segment of his body. Every single segment, is it just one pair of legs we have there? If it is yes, then it is a centipede. If no, that is you can find more than one pair in a segment, then the organism you are talking about is what? A millipede. Now you can trace the other ones. So something as simple as these two is what scientists use to what? Name organisms. That's for taxonomy. I told us that systematics is very complex because in as much as we are naming them based on what we are seeing, we're also looking at what their evolutionary what trend. But for this stage, it is not for us to look into. So here comes our classwork. Is that all of us perform this at our own leisure time, just like we did here. I'm in an environment where I can still conduct my own. So students should what? Observe provided specimen or pictures. Please, you can observe your environment. If you are inside, that would be bad. You can observe your siblings or you can observe your parents. Now, identify visible features. How many, what's the number of legs or limbs do this person I'm looking at have? Okay, my mom, she has 4 limbs. Does she have wings? No. Does she have body segments? No. You've seen it. Now you start what? Placing them in appropriate kingdom. First of all, looking at my mom, eh, is he, what kind of nutrition does she exhibit? She's an heterotroph. She cannot produce her own food. She must kill an animal and eat, or she must buy grain and cook. So she must be what? An animal. Why is she not a bacteria? Why is she not a fungi? Number one, she has what? True nucleus. So she's what? An animal. So that way I can classify her down to Homo sapiens, just like we did earlier. Okay. So place each animals in appropriate kingdom. Use dichotomous keys to narrow down identification. Now record the what? Scientific names. Also note their distinguishing features. Adaptive features. Now speaking of adaptive features, that will be the next thing we look at right now. Types of adaptive features. First of all, what is adaptive features? Let me see if I cover it here in my slide. Alright. Adaptive features are those words. Let me explain. Adaptive features are those special modifications, those special evolutionary modification that enables an organism to survive in their environment. There are characteristics, behaviors that enables what? An organism to what? Best survive in their environment. Example, camouflage in what? Chameleons. Chameleons are able to alter the color of their body to assume that of the environment. Web feet in dogs. Web feet in dogs. This would enable them to be able to paddle effectively inside water. Thick fur. Thick fur in what? Polar bears. And the thick furs, polar bears, they live in what? Ice bowls. They live in what? Extreme cold environment. But their thick furs enable them to what? Maintain their what? Blood temperature, their body temperature. Long necks in giraffe help them to reach what? High trees. All these are what? Adaptive features. So lastly, types of adaptive features. We have structural, we have behavioral, we have physiological. So structural adaptive feature includes those physical traits you can see, just like limb type. Do they work with their 4 limbs or use their upper 2 limbs to what? Do complex tasks? Do they have what? Web feet or not? All those things are what? Physical traits. Long necks, short necks. Are you getting me? They have spines on their back. There are what? Adaptive features. Secondly, we have what? Behavioral. Example, migration, hibernation, courtship. Now, in migration,
Yeah,
some
please, so please, are you talking about the adaptive features? I can't see it in your slide. I'm just seeing particles.
you are seeing what?
I can
So that
see
it's
it
not
now. I
just
can see it now. Before
okay. That was probably network then. Okay, all right. So let's continue. Under structural, we have physical threats. Under behavioral, that's where a situation whereby an organism is able to alter their behavior to best adapt to the environment. Example, seasonal migration in animal. Sometimes you look up around some season changes, you see birds flying in flocks that are switching their environment. Thermoregulation that and venom is under physiological adaptation. Remember, physiology talks about function. Some organisms are able to develop venoms, that is as protective feature, and can be able to regulate their body temperature. Okay, so this all for this class. So we have reached the end of today's class.